Hey, so I want to circle back on Exxon. Ticker symbol is on the screen, XOM. Last time we looked at this was on June 8th, so we're going to go into some news about this one. And of course, if there's something I miss, feel free to mention that in the comments, or if you want to expound upon something that I touched on, feel free to do that. Or if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer those. Uh, but yeah, so let's go into the news, and then we'll wrap up with a technical analysis just to see if the buy point we have in place has changed, the resistance point, and just overall how we're going to handle this in terms of buying and selling its stock. Uh, but starting off with the news, uh, starting at the top, Exxon Mobil is embracing the new energy revolution. I was wondering if this was going to happen. The reserves can be used to fuel investment in new clean energy solutions. So, opening this article, it turns out they're pursuing lithium. That's what they think is the new energy. I was thinking they might pivot into electricity, but I think they're a company that drills for things, and so lithium is something you drill for, so it should be a kind of an easier transition between the two. Moving on, we have Nigerian regulator links Exxon to illegal lifting of petroleum from terminal. Uh, Allegedly, ExxonMobil was involved in the illegal lifting of petroleum products from an offshore terminal. Exxon denied the accusation. Apparently, the way their story goes, at least, is some Nigerian um, ship of some sort got into an Exxon Mobil terminal, apparently, and that's not allowed to happen. It's supposed to be a regulator, some Nigerian government official, I take it. He's supposed to be the only one with access, but somehow someone got access. It sounds like Exxon wasn't aware of it, or if they were, it was not meant to be. Um, so I think this is just an open and shut case, but potentially it could be a fine of some degree. It should be very small, if anything, but we'll see if it pops up. It doesn't pop up in this month, not that I saw. Next, we just have a little fun fact here is in terms of institutional buying, roughly 60% of Exxon is owned by institutions, and roughly the other 39 to 40% is just the general public like us. Next, we have the inside the race to remake lithium extraction. Lithium industry is sucking in oil producers. As we mentioned before, uh, that is what Exxon is going after. And I have noted here in the bottom right that uh, it mentions this patch of land in Arkansas that apparently has some lithium. Uh, and yeah, so Exxon's pursuing that. Next, Exxon in Guyana. This is a South American country. They're in talks to return unexplored offshore oil areas and to continue that in talks over which unexplored offshore areas will be returned to the government. So apparently, Exxon and this small country, I take it, in South America reached a deal to it would allow Exxon to explore offshore oil reserves, which I don't think the country even really knew about. I think Exxon just wanted to see if there was oil in this area of the country. The country made a deal. Exxon ended up finding oil there. The thing is, I guess the deal is for, I'm sure it goes into it, so if you know the more specific details, but just in a broad sense, Exxon basically bought, say, 10 patches of land, and they just started trying to see if there was oil there, and clearly there was, but there was just so much land, 10 patches in such a short period of time, because this deal happened maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. They drilled in, I don't know, maybe 5 of those patches. I think it's actually, I don't, regardless of how many patches there are, there was 2 of these patches that they didn't get to. They didn't have enough time to get to them. Those are most likely going to be returned to the government, and apparently, like a percentage of their current land is meant to go back or possibly be restructured. So that's something that's, I would say, probably bad news, if anything. The fact that they thought they would have all this land. I guess on the good news side, though, is I imagine they didn't know. Well, I guess, that happened years ago. So, yeah, if anything, this is more bad news because clearly they thought they would be able to access all the patches. Here they are. They didn't have enough time to get to all of that land. So they might have to give it back. We'll see how that develops. Next, we have a U.S. climate change lawsuit is seeking $50 billion, citing a 2021 heat wave. This Oregon County is suing Exxon and a variety of other parties, seeking over $50 billion to counter the harms caused by extreme weather fueled by climate change. Not sure how that's going to turn out. It doesn't seem solid enough to me, but I'm not a lawyer. So, of course, we'll see how that plays out. And again, they're targeting many companies. Exxon just happens to be included. So, again, we'll see how that plays out. Next, we have Guyana is not interested in joining OPEC. And then it just summarizes they're just not interested in joining. So, yeah, again, Guyana's, I guess, new to the oil scene here. And OPEC reached out to see if they would be interested in just joining a meeting, not actually joining OPEC, the party of countries or the group of countries that makes up OPEC, but they did invite them to a meeting to obviously probably see if they'd be interested and maybe joining, but Guyana's just not interested at that. Then we have just a note here. Apparently Guyana is not a very rich country. I mean, I've never heard of it, so this kind of tracks. But apparently with all this oil they have, apparently they could be one of the richest nations, which is pretty exciting for a country like this. Next we have Exxon is expanding lithium. Their lithium bet with Tetra Technologies. So that Arkansas patch that I mentioned earlier, they did reach a deal here. So they agreed to develop more than 6,100 lithium-rich acres in Texas with Tetra Technologies. And apparently this is the second move like this that Exxon's made. But so that's good. They want to explore this. They found a partner to, I guess, help them to some degree. And so seems like a good news. Not like crazy good, but still, it sounds like it's a step in the right direction because this is where they want to go. Next, we have Saudi Arabia and Russia deepen the output cuts. Top oil exporters, they said they're going to continue this output cut of, I believe it's 1 million barrels per day for another month. So not a direct Exxon news, but still it's related. So we mentioned it here. Next we have Petro Vietnam Gas is talking to Exxon on its LNG supply. LNG is liquefied natural gas. So Petro Vietnam, it's seeking to secure long-term supplies for Vietnam's future LNG-fired power plants. This is a regional manufacturing hub in Vietnam. So Vietnam has this facility that focuses on LNG. Exxon is related to some degree. Vietnam's trying to make a pitch for, hey, Exxon, you should kind of come with us and work on this, and we'll see. No deal has been made as far as I'm aware, but we'll continue to follow it and see how that turns out. Next, we have Exxon sees $4 billion earnings hit from gas prices. So their earnings haven't come out yet. I believe they're scheduled to come out by the end of the month. But the leaders there are already telling us expect a big hit. So they said lower natural gas prices and refining margins will reduce second quarter earnings by about $4 billion compared to the previous quarter. So that's a big hit. We were expecting this. Um, but yeah, $4 billion. We'll of course get the side by side once it's available. But that's a pretty big hit. I guess the good news is they made tons of money over the past like year. So to see it get pulled back a little bit, they should have enough cushion back there that it shouldn't really affect them long term. But clearly, it's not the great profits that it was before. But let's keep going. So Exxon Mobil gets the go ahead for a 35 well exploration project. So this is going back to Guyana. So there's this consortium, or Exxon's consortium received the Guyana regulators' approval to drill 35 new exploration wells in the Stab Rock offshore block. So there's the mention of one specific block in this deal. I believe Exxon was like on the verge of going into there, but the deadline was so close. So um, I this was what I believe happened is they were on the verge of going into that block, but because they were so close to the deadline, Guyana was almost saying no, you can't do that because it's too close. You're just it, it wouldn't be a worthy enough effort to count, and they would have to give it up. However, I guess Exxon's made enough progress, and there's still enough time in the contract that they said, okay, you can continue drilling here. So I suppose that's a positive here. But next we have Exxon was downgraded. So the next piece, sort of in the middle, right below that title, we have Wolf Research downgraded Exxon Mobil to peer perform from outperform. No price target though. And of course, this only makes sense based on what we saw earlier about a $4 billion decrease in expected earnings. So that makes sense. But next we have ExxonMobil has also officially changed their headquarters to Houston. They announced this back in January of 22, and they expected to do it by mid-23. Here we are. They made it official. They are now headquartered in Houston. This is the last bit that we have. So this is a big positive, I feel. To me, it sounds like they're using that extra money that they made over the past year, maybe 2 years, and they're putting it to use. So this is the last piece. Exxon's made a $4.9 billion deal with Denbury to boost its energy transition plans. So they just bought it. They bought this Denbury place. So to continue along, they agreed to buy Denbury Inc. for $4.9 billion, acquiring a company with a substantial carbon dioxide sequestration operation that could accelerate its nascent energy transition business. This builds out Exxon's plan to develop an emerging market that makes money from reducing its own and others. So I'm not too familiar with Denbury, but they, if we skip ahead to the third piece, they are in this carbon capture facility or industry where clearly this kind of helps Exxon in two ways. Number one, whatever resources this Denbury has, it should be able to hopefully kind of butt heads, I would imagine, at first to get Exxon to bring down its carbon emissions. Denbury can help with them directly, hopefully efficiently decrease their bad pollution and turn it into a more green, efficient way. They can also help others do the same thing. So it has potential to reach new revenue areas, and hopefully this deal is better to save costs. Of course, we'll see how it plays out, but this is a pretty big deal. I mean, nearly $5 billion for this company. This acquisition is an all-stock transaction, again, valued at $4.9 billion, or $89.45 per share, based on ExxonMobil's closing price on July 12, 2023. Denbury shareholders will receive about 84 cents to the dollar of an ExxonMobil shares of Exxon Mobil for a Denbury share. In addition to the Denbury's carbon capture and storage assets, the acquisition includes Gulf Coast and Rocky Mountain oil and natural gas operations. The operations consist of proved reserves totaling 200 million barrels of oil equivalent, with 47,000 oil equivalent barrels per day of current production. So I did take a peek at what Exxon makes. At least a couple years ago, they were making about 560,000 barrels a day. So this adds 47,000 a day. And who knows how long that'll last, but I get the point. You know, that $4.9 billion, they should be getting some money back. But again, I don't think it's not like it's I don't know, easing the deal. That clearly this is a ton of money. I guess the good thing is it's not a cash deal, so they should still have plenty of cash. I have to imagine that this would bring down the stock price, only because I'm imagining they're pushing more stock out there. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's jump into the technical analysis and just see what's going on with that. So again, last time we looked at this was June 8th, and maybe it'll be best if we just share our tracker here. So we did have it in green, so I felt like it was a good buy point. I did not buy this one, only because if we look at the buy column, I have two buy points here. I have 61 and 106. So 106, and I'll bring us over here again. 106 was the bottom of this green trend line. And let's zoom in a little bit. So June 6th, or June 8th, I mean. So we were right around here, like 108. So there always seems to be like two theories going on with these stocks, but the first theory here is we're in this uptrend. We've been in this uptrend for the past 2 years roughly. We're now at the bottom, and there was the one approach is this uptrend is going to continue on, and if it does, 106 is an ideal spot for this because it's at the bottom of that trend. And if the trend continues forward and all of a sudden we get peaks, you're getting it at one of the best times. The other buy point that we had was 61, and so if we scroll out, 61 is based on what it kind of used to be, or at least the range roughly between like 50 and 70. So 61 is kind of in the middle here, from like 2015, possibly even further back. Like I'll play it safe and say like 2016 all the way up till about 2019. It was in this $61 range. We had that big drop, and then here we are at 112, nearly double. I just thought it would pull back to that range, maybe a little bit higher, but to double it, that was just very surprising. So that is why we have that second buy point. Now, I didn't pick a specific buy point. What I normally do when I have multiple buy points or resistance points is I like to pick one that I'm kind of watching. We didn't do that for this one, so I do plan on changing that before the end of the video. And also we had a resistance point of 131. Again, keeping that uptrend in mind, this would have been just the top of that range, of that channel range. The notes that we left ourselves was it was in this uptrend for the past 2 years, but we noted $61 due to its consistent fluctuations around that point for years 2012 to 2020. So my gut is telling me 61 is likely going to get bolted, but let's just kind of take a look, see what's going on. So right off the bat, it looks like we're beginning to break that uptrend. Not necessarily a good thing here, or it's just a really good deal, because again, I've seen plenty of stocks where it goes above the uptrend channel or below the uptrend channel, ultimately to bounce right back in that range, you know, like a month and a half later. So we've only broken this channel about, let's see, from about mid-June to mid-July. So it's been about 1 month since we've broken the channel. We'll see how this develops. But for now, so going back to June 8th, that'd be right here, about 108. I'll zoom in a little bit more. This little green sliver here, that was about 108 on June 8th. Since then, it's kind of been sideways, but ultimately it has decreased in value. So now we're at 101. So I'm going to update that. The buy points for me today. So there's a couple spots. If this one is going to start trending downwards, the spots that I'm looking for in terms of possible support on this one, I'm going to list out, we could list out 98. That's this green line here. That point was picked because it has pulled back in the past to 98. We were still in that uptrend though. That's kind of the catch. So not too much support here. So what I'm going to do is actually make this thinner. We also have a little bit of support here at 81. So I'm going to turn this into a green line. And so right now I'm kind of forecasting it's going to pull back a decent amount. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but that's kind of the impression I have with this one. But yeah, I don't want to get too far ahead. Right now, if I was interested in buying this, I mean, ultimately, I'd want it back here at like 61. If I kind of look back for like real support, so I'm just going to pick a horizontal line in here. We'll make that bold. And then, and again, I'm not making this perfect, just to kind of get a sense of where support kind of seems to be. Maybe down here, like 55. I mean, if you can catch it at 55, that's a really good spot. So I could bring that up a little bit, but 55, wow. I'm going to even draw in one more spot, just a little bit higher. So right around here, which isn't too much higher, but about $59, $60. That's like an intermediary, like really good buy spot. I'm going to make that a little bit less, but that's a good support line too. I would say this one's actually better than the two that we drew in previously. So I'm going to make this a little bit thicker. Hopefully that stands out a little bit. So going back to the original question, the buy points for me for this one, honestly, I'm going to put in 59. 59 is like the ideal. Above that, so I guess I'll leave 61 just because the note. I'll leave that in for a little bit. We also have 82, a little bit of support there. We have 98. So let me just update this. We have 59, which is replacing 61. We are then going to have 82. There was some support there. We also have 98. And then that 106, so that was the bottom of the uptrend, if it was like the absolute bottom. So for this week specifically, that point would be at 109 because it just continues upward. If I were to project this one out about a month, because that's when I'm estimating, I'll circle back to this, that'd be about 113. So if it's less than 113, that would be the pick. For me right now, my point of interest is 59. Like, I'm curious to see their financials. That's all I can say with the big drops that they're having. So 59 is my point of interest. Um, again, the color coordination to this one is probably not going to perfectly match what I'm thinking, but we'll see. Let's just keep going with this. So for resistance, I had 131. If we go back, let me do something here. So if we go back to June 8th, the top of that week, that was about 130, 131. And so right now this week, resistance would be like 134. That's just not happening. And then if we were to project this one out just another month, it'd be at 137. That is so far off of where it is anymore. What's happening, if anything, we could draw in potentially this is the top for them. And I'll make this red. And let me make the line a little bit thicker. So that might be the peak of this one, 117. It's been rejected twice there. Even this 112, it got rejected there, bounced back, came there, pulled back the next week, pulled back the next week, rejected, finally got above it for about a month, and then fell right back down. I'm definitely curious to see if this one gets caught at 98. There was some support here, I suppose. It didn't want to go below. Also about 101, 98. I don't feel like there's much support there. The next interest would be like 82. There's a couple times where it dropped there and then got caught. If it doesn't get caught there, I could see this one pulling back to 59 real quick. Yeah, this one's rough. This one's rough. So so I'm not gonna say that the uptrend is broken yet, but it's very close. It is very close to me saying it is done. Right now, I'm thinking maybe we're gonna see some consolidation between about 98 and 117. Maybe that's where it's gonna bounce around. We'll find out probably in August what happens, especially after the earnings. So what I'm going to do is for resistance, what I think, probably like 117, 112. I'm going to just take out 131, get that out of here. So let's put in 112 and 117. I'm going to make 117 the bold figure, even though that's like pretty far away. This one has the potential to grow pretty quick, pretty fast. So I'll leave it in for now. I'm going to update the date. Whoops. To today. As far as our notes, uptrend for the past 2 years, I'm going to keep that in for one more month, but I'm going to say may have broken that uptrend. $61 is noted due to its consistent fluctuations around that point for years 20. Okay, so we'll keep that. I guess the last question is, what do I rate this one in terms of like a color coding? You know, I'm gonna make this green. I'm gonna leave it green. I personally am considering shorting this. I probably won't, but we'll see. If this one continues to drop and drop quick, yeah, I'm gonna consider it, because this uptrend seems like it's been broken, but we'll see if it gets caught around 98. So I'm going to leave it as a green, as a buy, only because, well, there's two reasons. The first one is, if that uptrend's still intact, the fact that it dipped below there, this is like a great deal if that uptrend continues. The thing is, based on the earnings report, I think that's done. But for that one reason, if this uptrend is going to continue, sure, it's a potential buy. The other reason is we have some support around $98. The fact that we're at 101 with resistance at 117, you know, that's another buy signal too. Not the strongest, but one can argue that. Yeah, so just technically, it kind of breaks my heart because I want to make this one like red. I want to stay away from this one. Man. I guess what we're going to do is we're just going to call it blue. We'll call it fair value because there's a case for it going up, but just some things about this are pointing in the wrong direction for me. So I'll just leave it as blue. I'm not looking to pick this one up. But yeah, by all means, let me know how you're seeing this. Are you interested in this one? Do you think this one's a good deal? What is your buy point? How are you looking at this one? Yeah, I'd be curious to know. But yeah, just a quick recap before we close this out. So Exxon currently trading at 101. I have buy points. I have tons of buy points. 59, 82, 98, 106, and 113. Each one of those points is a spot of support for this company. The thing is, not until you go back down to 59 do you see like real support. Yes, there was a little bit at 98, a little bit more at 82, but not until you get back to 59 do you see like, yeah, it should probably get caught there. Same with resistance. It's got close, or it's got rejected at 112 a couple times. I think it's been rejected I know it's been rejected at 117 once, if not twice. So 117 is like the real limit because that's kind of like all-time highs. So that's my point of interest. And then the note that we left ourselves is it's been in this uptrend for the past 2 years, but that might have just broken over this past month. And also we have 61 noted due to its consistent fluctuations around that point from years 2012 to 2020. We might be coming back there. We'll keep following this one to see if we're right on that thinking or not. But yeah, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.